and welcome to Ask Me About K-Pop, the essential guide for recent converts and seasoned fans alike. My name is Shannon.
And I'm Angelica.
And welcome to the show. This week's episode was born out of truly just my own selfish curiosity. After Astros After Midnight came out, was thinking about making like a K-pop disco playlist of all my favorite K-pop disco songs. But I didn't even know where to start, and I was like, oh, I'll have to sort. So I was like, maybe I can just make the listeners start a list for me. And that's essentially what happened here.
Yeah, I thought about that too, of how would I even go about finding my favorite disco songs? Because I'd have to go through and just re-listen to all of the songs I've ever loved and see does this have disco elements? Yes or no. So what we did instead was we asked our seasoned fan tier patrons to submit to us their number one favorite K-pop disco track. So we have a list of, I think, about 11 that we've pulled. And so we're going to listen to them and we'll just have a little bit of a reaction. And if you are a patron of our Patreon, then you will also get a video reaction of us listening and watching everything that got submitted. But before we dive into what the patrons sent to us, we wanted to talk a little bit about what disco is and kind of the history of the genre, because we are, of course, an educational podcast at our heart.
And how can we talk about disco if we don't just tell you what that even means?
Yes,
right?
Especially because I was worried maybe people don't know what I mean when I say disco guitar. And so we just wanted to give ourselves a starting off point to say, okay, this is what makes a disco song. And then when we get into our patron recommendations, we can listen and watch together and kind of decide, does this qualify as a K-pop disco track? Should it be on the playlist?
Yeah.
Because we will start building a monstrous K-pop
the
disco
playlist will happen.
It will be huge.
It was part of the whole ruse, is there's got to be a playlist so that we can have a full K-pop disco dance party when we're done with this.
Exactly. That's the real goal here.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to dive in and I'll give us a little mini history lesson.
Wonderful.
So, disco is a genre of dance music and also a subculture that emerged in the US in the 1970s. It developed in the late 1960s as a reaction to rock music and the stigmatization of dance music. I think that kind of spurred the growing popularity of it. But as a genre, the music developed in African American and Latino American dance clubs in Philadelphia and New York City. And there are several very specific signature elements that make a disco song. So these are the things we're going to be listening for when we are listening to our K-pop songs and deciding, is this K-pop disco? Number one, you must have soaring vocals. They are often reverberated, and the vocals in the melody line are doubled by horns, strings, and electric pianos. What we usually call disco guitar on this show,
yes,
I learned has an actual term.
Okay.
It's called chicken scratch rhythm guitar, and it sounds like this. This is the signature piece. If you are wondering whether a song is disco, does it have that scratchy waka 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 whatever disco song in the guitar? If it doesn't, it's probably not a disco song. So that combined with the syncopated bass lines is what usually makes up the guitar and bass lines of a disco song. So now we've got these vocals, we've got horns, strings, and electric pianos layered in over these guitars and basses. And then the key piece, the number one, can't have a disco song without it, is the 4 on the floor beat. And basically all that means is that the bass drum, the drum that's on the floor, hits every single beat in the 4/4 time signature. So the bass drum is going to keep 1, 2, 3, 4 throughout the whole song. And that's a typical dance beat. It's not exclusive to disco, but almost all disco has it. And it's not originally an American beat either. In the US, you can trace it all the way back to the Lindy Hop, which is a type of swing. But 4 on the floor is a very common for any kind of dance genre because it helps you keep the beat. Mm-hmm. So all together, what you really get in the disco sound is what people call a wall of sound, because disco tracks are incredibly produced and usually take a whole like orchestra in order to make them. Because what you have is the vocals, strings, and horns on the melody, which are then being harmonized by the electric piano and the chicken scratch guitar. And there's a doubling of all parts of the music. So you get this, so it's a huge sound. That's why they call it a wall of sound, because you have like no empty space in the composition of the song. So there's a lot of examples of this in American music, obviously, because it was a hugely popular genre here in the US, and for a while like dominated the pop music tracks. The 4 on the floor beat with the hi-hat, you can see one of the earliest, thank you, one of the earliest examples, you can see it in later Motown. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes song, The Love I Lost, is one of the first mainstream examples of this. It came out in 1973. The love I lost. Then we have, of course, in 1975, Van McCoy's The Hustle, which is a classic disco song, and this gives you a really great example of the horns and the strings that define the genre. You cannot talk about disco unless you talk about Donna Summer, so of course, Last Dance. This has... I mean, you can just really hear the like wall of sound in this track, I think, because you have her voice, which just goes like all over the place, and then there's no empty space behind it. Like every harmony and melody line is filled with some kind of instrument behind it. Not an American artist, but ABBA, of course, is like definitive of disco. I think most people think of ABBA when they think of disco. And their song Mamma Mia, which is perfection. The chorus of it, that iconic Mamma Mia, does it show again? That's a great example of the doubling of the vocals, because everything else in that song drops out and you just hear the vocals that are being doubled by the piano behind it. Although in general, the instrumentation of Mamma Mia actually doesn't fit several of the disco elements that we need on this checklist, because it was kind of on the earlier side and it still has a lot of influence from the rock guitar. Like ABBA had a lead guitarist, and one of the things that's very specifically different about disco is that it takes the emphasis of the lead guitar that is in rock music completely out, because now you have like the whole composition sort of working together. You really don't have one element overpowering any of the others. Disco, like I said, was very popular throughout the 1970s, but then it started to decline toward the 1980s. And I normally wouldn't have really gone into that much research about the decline of a genre, except that there was one particular event that stood out to me that I was like, well, we have to talk about this because what the fuck. So in the 1980s, or in like toward the late 1970s, because the genre of disco was associated with dance clubs, and because it started in Black and Latino dance clubs, it was often affiliated with queer club culture as well. So you have a lot of people are associating disco with promiscuity, with drug use, with sexual liberation,
homosexuality,
exactly. And heathens, hedonistic nightclub culture. There is a very fascinating article from 1979, which is called In Defense of Disco. It's by Richard Dyer. And it's a really interesting read if you want to learn a little bit more about the correlation between disco and sexual liberation from heteronormativity. Because Richard Dyer makes a really fascinating point about the sort of like phallic emphasis of the lead guitar in rock music, and how, because disco, like I said, doesn't emphasize that and instead has a very different relationship with all the instruments in the music, he makes a really fascinating correlation between that and like sexual liberation and exploration outside the confines of gender. So really interesting read from the time period In Defense of Disco. But anyway, because this old subculture was largely connected with homosexuality and promiscuity, in the it a lot of people didn't like it and had a lot of things to say against it. And toward the end of the 1970s, people started criticizing disco, calling it overproduced, mindless, consumerist, and like escapist, right? People are criticizing it for being this essential bubblegum pop that doesn't have substance, as opposed to rock music, which usually has some kind of complaint or purpose.
Or
behind
even
it.
like the movie Saturday Night Fever, which like on its head seems like a glorification of like disco and joy and dancing, is like a really dark movie that ends
Yes.
really terribly and really sadly. So like the point of that was to be like, see, this is not
Disco is
good.
dangerous. It'll lead you down a dangerous path. So there's a lot of debate about where the sort of harsh criticism against disco came from. Gloria Gaynor, who is the singer of I Will Survive, a disco queen, she claimed that a lot of the criticism came from a capitalist point of view. She claimed that because disco is not cheap to produce, it was costing American producers money to make it. And so because of that, she basically claimed, look, it cost somebody the wrong amount of money and they trickled down the point that disco needed to die. But this all what am I saying?
Culminated?
Thank you. I almost said consummated. This all culminated on July 12th, 1979, which is known as the day that disco died. Or the official event was called Disco Demolition Night. This night happened when two rock DJs in Chicago and the son of the Chicago White Sox owner staged an anti-disco demonstration between this baseball doubleheader between the Chicago White Sox and some team I didn't write down. Basically, there were going to be two baseball games. And in the middle of so like after the first baseball game, the DJs had been telling everybody to bring their disco records, like bring whatever we're gonna it's disco demolition night, whatever. So the crowd it was a sold out night. The crowd was filled with people with like signs that said like disco sucks and all this stuff. And after the first game, the two disco DJs brought this like whole crate of music and they literally exploded it on the field, created a huge ditch in the field, and then the crowd mobbed the field and had to be broken up by Chicago police in riot gear, and the second game was canceled due to damage to the field. Duh. So that, after that, disco was pretty much dead, and nobody in the
angry
US
white boys had beat each other up and said it was dead,
and said
so
that
was
was
dead.
enough. So nobody wanted to play disco anymore, and now we had this popular idea being perpetuated that disco was not cool. If you've ever watched something like That 70s Show, this is a great example of the stigma against disco music. There's literally an episode where Jackie and Fez get into disco and they start dancing and they have to like hide it from the rest of them because everybody thinks it's like a nerdy thing to do. But anyway, there's a lot of critique over like what stirred this, like, why would someone create such a demonstration against just a genre of music? And Rolling Stone critic David Marsh wrote that same year that the event resulted from, quote, white males 18 to 34 who saw disco as the product of homosexuals, blacks, and Latins, and therefore responded to appeals to wipe out such threats to their security. So just like you said, these white boys got mad that other people were making fun music, so they decided to set it on fire.
Really interestingly, this is like totally different, but it feels really parallel. I recently watched the Woodstock 99 documentary on HBO. Highly recommend. It's really hard to watch. Like, there's a lot of really rough stuff in it, so warning about that. But in a similar way, that was like Dave Holmes, my buddy Dave Holmes was saying in the documentary that it was like at that time MTV was playing like Britney and Justin alongside of Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff, and so those like angry white boys that liked their angry white boy music were very angry at MTV for like catering to not them. And so like at Woodstock 99, before they burned everything down, like Carson Daly had to be like rushed out because they were just like pelting him with glass and rocks and shit. Like, fuck you, Carson Daly.
Wow.
So like, I don't know, just a kind of similar, like whenever things that are like for girls or gays get popular, like it seems like it bubbles up and then people get fucking pissed and they have to burn it down.
Absolutely. I mean, even in the 1970s, like toward the end of the 1970s, when artists like David Bowie started incorporating disco elements into their music, they were criticized as sellouts because now they're bringing in this like more pop popular music genre, and therefore like, oh, you're going mainstream because like that's what a lot of people like. So the 80s really marked the decline of disco, and the 80s, there's really no disco in the 80s. But the legacy of the 80s, the legacy of disco cannot be ignored, because from disco we get EDM, period. Like all of EDM comes from disco. Disco created house, techno, and Euro dance genres. Disco gave us DJ culture and early hip hop. If you've ever watched the Netflix original series, The Get Down, it's a very stylized, like fictionalized telling of the start of hip hop in New York. And it talks about how DJs would find a particular part of a disco song and loop it in order to be able to rap over it, but not alienate the people who are there to dance.
Right.
So you want to be able to still engage the crowd without losing the dance element of the song. So, for example, the song Rapper's Delight uses the disco song Good Times as a foundation for it. In the 90s, this is happening now.
Yeah.
Like every 20 years, we start getting nostalgic for 20 years ago. So the 90s brought about more 1970s nostalgia. And so that's where you start to see some pop music bringing back some disco elements. D-Light's Groove is in the Heart is a great, yes. Great example.
That just hit me, like things like that. Yes.
I saw that epiphany in your eyes. We were like, yes. And then in the 2000s, we got a genre that was referred to as new disco, NU-disco.
Like new metal.
Exactly. So it's like refreshed, right? And so that's where you get artists like Daft Punk and Kylie Minogue really making their mark. The 2010s, we're infiltrating more into the pop music. Artists like Bruno Mars, Robin Thicke, Justin Timberlake, starting to create disco songs that you can't stop the feeling or whatever, disco.
Yeah.
Now, in the 2020s, it is currently one of the main trends in pop music.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot deny that disco is back. Artists like Dua Lipa are credited with bringing it back with her amazing album Future Nostalgia, but also you can hear it in Doja Cat's, like kind of the TikTokification of music, I think brought a lot of disco elements back into it because it is dance music. But the funniest, like, I guess, analogy I saw of like why disco is back is because disco is escapist and it is fun, and we're not having a great time right now. So we need our music to be the fun that we're not having in our real life. And so that kind of brings us up to today, where we are in the disco world. We've come full circle, I think.
For sure.
And we can see it now in our K-pop as well. There are a lot of examples. Like we said, we would have to literally go back and listen to like every
song
K-pop
I've
we've ever heard and decide whether or not it makes the playlist. But just off the top of my head, I thought of 6 great recent K-pop examples of an overall disco concept and then just the disco elements. Overt disco concepts. First up, JYP and Sunmi's When We Disco.
Remember, baby, love is the when we disco, when we disco.
This came out and the whole thing is literally set at a disco club. It's basically Saturday Night Fever, but with a slightly different ending. Then we've got G-Friends, Mago. This song didn't have full disco elements throughout the entire thing, but the disco concept was big in all of their outfits, in their stages, and in the music video as well. And then, of course, BTS Dynamite, fully disco concept, again, in the outfits, in the staging. I believe there's a set
Doesn't it
of
just
the
say
music. It
disco
literally,
really big
that's
in the
what I was
letters?
gonna say. It literally says disco really big behind them at one point in the music video. And the song does include a lot of disco elements, especially that chicken scratch guitar. But there are other K-pop disco songs or K-pop songs that incorporate disco elements that weren't in the concept but are in the instrumentation. We've said this a lot, but Astro's After Midnight doesn't have an overtly disco concept to it. They're just kind of like summertime fresh-faced boys, but the disco guitar is fantastic, and it is a major point of the chorus of that song. Brave Girls, We Ride is probably my favorite example
Okay.
of recent K-pop disco. And when I was thinking of, like, when I was literally pulling together all of the information for this episode, and I was like, what are other disco songs? I had something else on there. And then I was like, wait a minute. We Ride. Is that a disco song? Is that why I loved it so much? And it literally took 3 seconds of the song to start for me to be like, yep, this is disco. Here we
Yeah.
go. So it made the list. And then lastly, not the last song, but the last example from the recent years that I have on my list, TXT's Blue Hour. Again, an example that doesn't, like Astros After Midnight, doesn't have disco elements throughout the entire thing, but in the chorus in particular, the chicken scratch guitar is a feature of the main melody or harmony that's behind the vocals.
Yeah, that's all very great. One thing I wanted to mention before we move on to watching things, because I think when we're talking about K-pop, it's important to consider, and that is the existence of city pop. And city pop is Japan's version of disco
Yes.
that was truly birthed out of American disco, like 100%, and it was the late 70s, early 80s.
I was just gonna say, didn't it get really popular in the 80s? So it must have come almost like as disco was declining in the US, it was infiltrating and picking up popularity in Japan.
And so it's like a lot of the same elements in city pop, but I think the main difference is that because it was the 80s, a lot of the music instruments in city pop are electronic. It's electronic keyboards, it's electronic violins. And so
Yes.
the sounds are more futuristic sounding, but it's disco. And so I feel like a lot of the times when we're talking about disco-y K-pop, like a lot of it is more city pop than it is disco, but I think it's all in the same like family for sure.
Absolutely. I think the main difference that you'll probably be able to hear between city pop and disco is that city pop, like you said, it's going to have more like synth and like sounds that you can't necessarily pinpoint the instrument. And disco, you should be able to name the instruments you hear.
Right.
Like you should be able to say that's a trumpet, that's a guitar, that's a bass.
Yeah, because a lot of the disco, like biggest disco bands like Casey and the Sunshine Band and like, were they just called the Family Band? Why can't I think of their name? But they had like 15 people
Yeah.
in them, full horn sections. Like it was like an orchestra
Yeah.
playing your dance music.
And that's why a lot of disco was criticized as being overproduced, because it is that huge production, and that's one of the reasons I think Gloria Gaynor rightly pointed out that it was expensive. And so a lot of American music producers didn't want to pay for the 15-piece orchestra they were going to have to use in order to make one song.
Yeah. Well, let's see what our Patreon listeners submitted for us and
Yes.
judge them. No.
No, but now that we have our criteria, we know what to listen for, we will be able to, because some of the songs on this list I have heard before, most of them I haven't. There's a few that I question, are they disco? And so we're going to find out, we're going to decide together.
Okay. All right. It's time to get into this list. So, our Patreon listeners were assigned, give us your favorite disco song and tell us why you chose it.
Yes.
That's the prompt.
So we'll just go down. This is in no particular order. So we'll just go down. We'll read the title of the song and the artist, the little explanation, and then we will watch and or listen to whatever it is.
All right. So, our first submission is Twice, Can't Stop Me. And this listener said, cannot not dance when this song is played, and I normally only like boy groups.
Ooh. I mean, I agree. You definitely can't not dance when listening to this song. So let's find out. Twice, I Can't Stop Me. Is it disco? So right away, I would say I can't immediately name that instrument.
It's like it's a synth piano.
Okay, we've got our dance beat.
Now this is a trap beat, not a disco beat. Out of control. I tried very hard to learn this dance, and I do know it, but I could
But it's
never
so
do
fast.
it fast enough.
So now that we're in the chorus, I would say I'm not hearing any of the chicken scratch guitar. And I don't hear a syncopated bass line, which is usually a very definitive disco piece. But we are proving this listener correct.
It is a
You
dance.
cannot
It is a dance.
not
song.
dance.
That is absolutely true. Ugh, these outfits. I loved these
Ugh.
yellow outfits.
This was what
so
got me.
Much. I know.
Them on the platform, I was done. One Tumblr GIF set is all it took. And I was in love. She's not even my type.
But she's commanding that center
She
spot.
really is. She really is. I remember Jenna telling us that Nayeon had to lie on the floor in order to reach some of those high notes when they were
recorded
recording.
it on the floor.
This is an emergency. Cause I know I can't stop me. Momo, free woman.
Oh yeah. I love the Rainbow Canyon. I want to live in it. It looks so cool.
The rainbow. Yeah.
Look at this.
You know
beautiful
what?
rocks.
It looks really similar to the alien set in the Bad Boy music
yeah,
video.
I think that one's more pink.
Yes,
but it's
this
very
one's rainbow,
similar.
but basically the bottom of a ravine.
Yeah, the bottom of an alien ravine.
Oh, Momo, that outfit is perfect. It's so perfect. Dolly Parton
And
dies.
Her hair, just.
Ah!
so-
Oh, wow, wow. Yeah, perfect haircut for her. Amazing. Amazing. Oh, I forgot about this part of the music video.
The train. Can't stop it.
Can't stop the train.
Well,
Well, I think that's definitively a dance track.
it
for
is like
sure.
a synth pop dance song, and it is definitely
Yeah.
a dance song, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, it does not fit our
Yes,
disco
it doesn't have
criteria.
anything off of our checklist. However, I would say it definitely would be I think that song to me had more, when I first heard it, I thought more of 80s Pat Benatar,
Yeah.
girl power anthems.
Absolutely.
So that had always more 80s than 70s vibes.
That's what I
to
would
me.
say. For sure. For sure.
The next one we have is a song I've not heard before from a group I've only ever heard the name of. I don't think I've ever heard anything from this
Really?
group. I don't think so. No, that must not be true.
It can't be true. I feel like they came up at least twice in our audit last year, so
Okay.
you have to have at least
Heard something of
heard
theirs.
some of their songs.
All right, well, I haven't heard this one. This is from Snooper, and the song is called Platonic Love.
Oh, excuse me. I was looking at the next. I was looking at the next.
Oh
down.
my
I
gosh,
was like-
yes. I definitely
I
know
was
the
like,
other
you know
group.
who that is. Excuse me.
No.
Take that all back. Snooper. That is a name I have heard.
A name,
It's
I have heard. Yes, a name I've heard. And this person only said if this had been released in 2020, ...
Mysterious.
Mysterious.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know what it means.
Would it have
I don't
been
know
good
anything
if it
about
was
this
released
song.
in 2020? Bad.
I don't know.
Okay, here we go. All right. So this is Snooper, Platonic Love.
Okay, we already have a retro vibe. Wait, I've seen this. I take it all back. I've seen this. In fact, I think we got them in our random game, and this was what we watched. That's the only reason I must have seen this. Well, there's a disco ball. This is disco. I don't need to hear anything else.
Just because the ball is all you need. Yeah, they're at a roller.
They are at a roller rink. Although this might
See,
actually
again, this
lean heavy.
feels
This is city
80
pop.
like city pop,
Yeah.
80s, like.
Yeah, I don't hear that guitar. And there's no horns or strings.
No.
Strings is an important disco element. But this is a great example of a disco concept for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the music video, like we said, is set in a roller rink. And has,
roller disco was a whole
Oh,
element
yeah.
of disco where you danced on roller skates. Which is also making a resurgence right now. All things roller skating. Yeah, this sounds like Aha or something. It's like very 80s.
I would also say there's like space in this composition. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not a wall of sound. But like when we were doing, sorry to talk about another group while we're listening to these guys, but in fairness, we've done a reaction to this before because they are 100% on our random games. So when we talked about Lovely's Hide and Seek being like a fucking song, like
Yeah.
a composition, someone threw the kitchen sink at it, that's a wall of sound.
Right.
In no part of that song is there less than 3 instruments playing at a time.
Sure.
But this echoey, this is not disco. No. Common misconception.
Hey man, that's what we're here for.
But I'm glad you brought up city pop because I think that's where this divide is coming from.
Absolutely.
Or where the Venn diagram is happening.
Yes.
I really like the retro video effects.
Yeah, with the little VHS play buttons and stuff. And then this cut to the like suits. Oh, the girl is shook.
Ooh, footwork. Okay, I think that this person's point is that if this came out in 2020, it would be way more popular than it
Yeah.
was when it actually came out, which looks like 2016. And
Yeah.
I think I agree.
I fully agree with that.
This is very much the vibe of music today.
Yeah, absolutely. That kick and kick.
Body roll.
I like the cape coats too.
Cute. Bye, Snooper.
Yeah, and that like what's it called? Vaporwave. That the font and that is very 80s too. Anyway.
And the neon. I feel like anything that has a lot of neon in it is going to be more
80s.
80s city pop.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This next one is the group I thought you were talking about. I was looking at the wrong line. This next song is Golden Child's Fanfare. And the listener who submitted this said, Golden Child hit hard with their latest comeback and cemented their place in my heart. This is their B-side stage. It doesn't scream disco to me. It's more like it murmurs it quietly in my ear with that beat, and the instrumental carries me along with it.
I love
right.
that description. So
Intrigued.
let's have Golden Child murmur in
some
our
disco
ears.
quietly in our ears. All right, here's Golden Child.
And I chose the performance version because
Fanfare.
of us.
Of course.
Because we are who we are. Ooh, okay.
Okay. I'm more sold on this one
I
so
am.
far.
Ooh, that funky bass. Here we go.
Okay.
Also, fine ass men in suits right now.
Yes.
Ooh,
Oh, this is fun. Oh, the pianos.
oh my god, this song is great. I no longer even care if it's disco.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to watch this. All of these men in their suits, they look great. I love the little slight variations in each one.
Yeah, this is actually very interesting because it's definitely got the funk and the beat that we want, but the piano that was in the verse is like a very 90s kind of piano. I don't know. There's a lot
That
of
kind
elements
of like
coming together.
echoey, like almost like an organ.
Yes, almost
Yeah.
that.
But the bass is using the chicken scratch technique, which comes from a specific way of playing the strings and like holding the frets. So I totally, right now, am standing behind the murmur of disco.
Yes.
Perfect description. I think perfect submission.
Yeah.
Ooh, hit that note.
Yes. Love this.
Ooh, and we are bringing in the horns.
Yeah. Ooh. This is a wall of sound.
This is a wall of sound. You know what I think this is missing though is the doubling up of things. There's no like, none of the instruments are echoing the melody line. Amazing. That was fantastic. I loved it. Murmur of Disco indeed.
I loved that. I think that totally can go on the playlist.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree. Great choice. Great
choice.
submission.
All right, next.
Next up, we have Shiny Kiss Kiss.
Ooh.
This song is pure perfection in every note and every piece of instrumentation. I love the funky bass, the soft syncopated lyrics, the groovy guitar, and the sweet synths. Shiny vocals are always impeccable, but in this song, I am obsessed with the gentle harmonies juxtaposed with Onu and Timmy and just belting it out. Let's go! It was in all caps.
Yeah, no,
When-
you're reading this perfectly.
When Onu floats off into high notes while Mino sings Come and Give Me That Kiss Kiss, I feel like my whole world is happier. This will be my favorite disco-inspired track forever! Special shout out to these lyrics sung by Mino and Onu. With my lips, I'll read your heart down to the single word in a new way. I'll make a language just for the two of us. To put this simply, I love you, Shiny, forever and ever!
All right.
Amazing.
There are no visual elements to Kiss Kiss. Shiny's never
Heartbreak.
like done it yet.
But this
Heartbreak.
is my favorite song off of the Don't Call Me album. So always excited for an excuse to listen to it. And I totally agree the Onu Timeen harmonies and ad libs toward the end are what fucking make this song. And let's go. Let's
So
see
let's
if it's
hear it.
disco.
Well, I did say in our album review episode of Don't Call Me that bass lick is directly taken from a disco song. I did
Yeah.
say that. Hear that beat, it's going the whole time.
This song is taking its time building in, though.
Which is fine.
Oh, of course. There it is.
There it
Chicken
is.
scratch. Can you hear it? Oh, can you hear
Bow,
it?
chicka, bow, chicka, bow, chicka, bow, bow, bow. Oh, that's, yeah, that chicken scratch guitar goes bow, chicka. That's what, that's.
Yes. Bounce, chicka, bounce, chicka, bounce. I was going waka, waka, waka.
Both
like
work.
Fozzie
I
Bear.
think both work. Yeah, I feel like it's fair to. Oh,
The
no.
harmonies. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the the description of this being disco inspired. Like,
Yes.
because this stuff is like a little too simple. If this was a disco
Absolutely.
song, there would be
be 4 other things happening. Yeah. But the guitar and the bass line is undeniably. And I think once we get toward the end of the song, you'll really hear it build into that wall of sound. But the difference with Shiny's disco is that the wall of sound is built up of their voices.
But like that's what the Bee Gees did, and like
Yeah.
that was ABBA's. Like it's that the harmony of as many people as you can is like an important element.
Exactly. Taking off these. They're jangly. Here comes the best part. Are you ready? Here we go. Sing it on out. Kiss, kiss.
Wow!
Yay, Shiny!
Yay, Shiny!
I love you so much. You're definitely going on the playlist.
Yes, Shiny on the playlist. All right, this next suggestion has. Wait, am I skipping one?
I don't know. Maybe.
Hold on. Oh. No, this is the next
Okay,
one.
yes.
Okay. This is a lot of words. Okay, our next submission is I use you and I. Okay.
Oh, I didn't even think of you, and I.
Okay. One might not immediately think of disco when they hear this song. Where is the funk bass line? Where are the synths and hand claps? While the hallmark of recent revival disco includes all these elements, what's missing from the current revival is the lush orchestral sounds
Agreed.
that were prominent in the early days of disco, that bring the drama and the velvet texture to the dance floor. Think of Barry White, George Benson, The Hustle, heck, even the disco version of the Star Wars theme. I was going to bring that in the Beethoven one earlier, and I forgot to.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
anyway. When I first heard You and I a couple of years ago on a random K-pop playlist on shuffle while riding my scooter, meaning I didn't have the chance to look down at my phone and see who it was, at the moment I was a little confused. Was this song thrown in as a throwback from some lost era of 1970s Korean music? It couldn't be. The production sounded too modern, and whoever was singing this definitely didn't sound of that time. But I also assumed that if this was a contemporary song, the singer must be a diva from an earlier generation making a comeback, because who would sound this seasoned and do this kind of song? The rich symphonic sound with the 4-on-the-floor beat was speaking 70s disco to me, but modern? It wasn't for a while that I knew who sang the song, and that she was super young when she released it, and that it was from 2011, decades past, when I thought this kind of music was still being spun. As someone who was obsessed with Donna Summer as a kid and watched Charlie's Angels on the first run of network TV, I was transported to another time entirely and tricked into thinking this was a relic from back then. What I do think is different here from vintage orchestral disco is how the music expresses less of a feeling of decadence and more about magic. Seeing the music video with a teenage IU in a storybook Sleeping Beauty setting is made this more clear, but the constant drum machine beat means it's not for a bedtime story, it's for a night out doing a little disco cha-cha.
Ooh, well, this person clearly knows the ins and outs of disco.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to hear this song. I don't think off the top of my head I know it, but we'll find
see.
out if I've seen it before. I chose not the original music video. I chose the performance version because we are who we are.
We are who we are. Okay, we've got like steampunk gears and ballerinas looking people to start with.
Ooh,
Oh,
grand.
here come
So
Yes.
grand.
Wednesday Adams IU.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god, these tiny little feet. The choreo is kind of like a doll, like a not a
Yeah.
marionette, but like a puppet.
Yeah, like
A
they're
doll
like
come to
little rag
life.
dolls. Oh, this song. I know this song.
I don't think I do. But that violin that you're hearing in the background with the like dee-dee-dee-dee, I feel like
Yes.
that's in so many disco
Yeah.
songs. ABBA loved a dee-dee-dee-dee.
Yeah. It's the most important part of like I Will Survive. All the like
Oh, outfit
Oh.
change.
This does kind of remind me of that Lovely song though, in that Princess Disco way. Like oh, I love those. I love the strings. These boys are getting their own dance solo.
Take it away, boys. IU's boy dancers always do though.
They
They
do.
always have really complex stuff. But this I feel like has that signature early IU of like Broadway pop.
Yeah.
Like the
There's
stage
like
is
show
such a
tuney
yeah.
thing about like something.
It's such a
about-
chorus line. I love that the guys have to do that dramatic too.
Oh, the
That guy's feeling it.
cute clock choreo. She's got great heels and all of these. Scenes.
Very high heels.
Very high, and her like that skirt is
Skirt's
so short.
small. As soon as you said Wednesday Adams, I was like, yeah, but with the tiniest skirt I've ever seen. Like she can't sit anywhere.
No.
That will be bare ass on the chair.
Twinkles. Oh my god.
I can totally understand why you would have thought that this was like super dated
Yeah.
K-pop. Especially for something that came out in 2011.
Yeah.
Like nothing else sounded like this. Not from a new young solo artist.
I don't think so.
But isn't that also one of the reasons IU like wasn't very popular after her debut? Because she was making music that like no
Well, I think
one
at
else
first she was
making.
just making like really
like
boring
bad. Or
music.
ballad. I didn't mean to say bad. I meant to say ballad. Ah,
Wow.
beautiful. Beautiful.
I liked that. I think it totally can work on the playlist.
It could. Absolutely.
But yeah, it totally is that. It's that print, like the princess disco, where like the beat was totally right, but the like vibe of the melody is like Disneyland show. Like
Yes.
there's something like
Yeah, where you're almost focusing, you're not bringing in the guitar and you're not bringing in the horns, so it makes it overall much lighter
yeah,
and more like sparkly.
yeah, very sparkly.
Yeah.
All right, next.
Next up, we have WJSN You Got. And this listener wrote, choosing just one track was really hard for me since there are so many great songs in this K-pop subgenre. Most of those that made it on my short list are rather bright or are rather bright or hit you over the head with their disco concept. As a contrast, I chose You Got by WJSN. It's a sophisticated and sexy song that I just can't get enough of. P.S. My honorable mention are Luna and the Boys dancing to Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. I have watched their end of the year stage countless times and I still enjoy it a lot, but sadly the track itself isn't K-pop. All right, so here we go. We're going to watch WJSN You Got, and I actually think this is... Oh, no, I did find a performance.
Found a stage.
I did.
All right. I love this song. Oh my god. I didn't recognize the title right away, but I fucking love this song and
It is definitely disco. You can hear it already.
But that's city poppier because that's
Yeah,
fake.
with the
those
echoey.
instruments are fake. Fake in that a computer made them, but
You can hear the lasery, like, that I think makes it more city pop for sure.
Oh, they're wearing
But
princess.
the beginning sounded like it had the chicken scratch guitar. Maybe I was mishearing it.
Well, that bass is really coming in. They're wearing the like princey rider pant outfits that I love when girls wear these
Yes.
horse girl outfits.
Equestrian.
Yes.
Oh, Canes. Oh man, I was at one point I was really good with their names and I stopped practicing and now
Oh, you got me.
yes, so those like grand sounds that you hear are definitely city pop.
Like there's a lot of dissonance and like the wall of there's a lot happening in the wall of sound, but the sounds themselves are electronic.
Computer.
So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh, but I love it. And this choreo is like much smoother and like different than I thought it would be. I listened to this album so much. It's so
Is this
good.
a
This is the
Unnatural album?
Unnatural album.
So I guess we're gonna have to decide if on this playlist we want to differentiate between city pop and disco. Because I do think if we're going off of the checklist, it doesn't count.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. Like maybe we can make two playlists or somehow
Yeah.
separate them because like
Because I think if we open up the parameters to include city pop, I do think it's a different thing. I think it's a different thing. But I don't know.
look at her bolo tie. She's so cool.
And her tails.
Tails.
Oh, she's
the only one who doesn't have her booty
yeah, she's
out.
the only one with tails. Because she's expensive.
Wigs. Yeah, and these echoey "Baby, You Got What I Want" feel very 80s too.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
That was great.
But yeah, I do think I do think we got
Maybe we need
differentiate.
we need
I think
to
now we
make
have
a
to make
split.
two. That's
We gotta
fine. We'll
a
just
split.
make
It's
two
fine.
playlists.
It's totally fine.
I love it.
Because
I'm
yeah,
gonna have to re-listen to We Ride now and see which
and see
side
if it's.
of the
I
spectrum it
feel
falls
like that
on.
song is more city pop, but
But I think it has the rhythm guitar. I think it
does.
does. Now I'm gonna have to re-listen to it. Whatever.
wow, this is gonna be a whole process.
Anyway, Next up.
Twice is on the list again.
Yes, this time with Twice, Say Something. And this listener wrote, it was really hard to choose just one disco track by Twice, so I'm submitting Say Something, basically just to represent all of the wonderful disco-inspired tracks they've been gifting us over the last couple of years. A close second is SOS on their newest album, Sorry to Sneak In Another Wreck.
No, you're not.
All right, so here we go. This is from the I Can't Stop Me album, Eyes Wide Open, Say Something.
All right, and we've got a like performance, and they're sitting. Okay,
Yes, they're just gonna sit and sing it, but I made sure that the track is the same.
Okay, here we go. Okay, yes.
This sounds disco to me.
Yes. Because we got our
We've got the,
wink, 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 wink.
let's see how it fills out. There's not a lot of electronic elements to it so far, so I do think it's leaning more disco instead of city pop.
No, that synth
Did I
just
speak too
came
soon?
in. That
I
synth
spoke too
just
soon.
came in real hard. Yeah. I also feel like the chord progression, there's like a specific chord
yeah.
progression for the city poppier
Of
songs.
the like,
Yes, like Michael McDonald songs
Yes.
all have like
Yeah,
similar,
yeah, yeah.
and that's so 80s.
Yeah.
But this is a total vibe, and I'm very into the vibe that it is.
Ugh, this is one of my favorite songs on this album.
The stage is very dark, though, I will say. They all do seem like they're just like sitting a bit in the darkness.
There's not a lot of lights
It's
on.
very purple. But yeah, the pianos that sound like hold music.
Ooh, such cute hair on her.
I know, it's really, really cute. Every time I think about cutting my hair short, it's because I think I can make it look like that, and I can't. So, like, I should never cut my hair short.
I mean, you
was-
could, but it would take a lot of curling irons.
Yeah.
And like hairspray and stuff.
There was, in the glam video we watched last week, one of the girls had, like, a really cute, short, pink hairstyle, and I was like, huh? And then I was like, no, you can't style it the right way. I wish, though, like, they look real cute sitting here and singing this, but, like, after just watching that WJSN song, I want to see them doing a little dance to
they
this.
definitely
Like,
could.
There's room for it. But yeah, I also, like, for argument's sake, like, I feel like you could do the hustle to this song. So, like,
Because
In
that
that way,
bass line
like-
is there's a disco bass
Right.
line in there for sure. And a saxophone solo.
oh, from Mo, that's why they laughed, because Mo was acting out his set.
But I remember when I first heard this song and the saxophone comes in at the end just for it to fade out. I was like, why? We
Yeah,
were
that's-
just getting somewhere.
That's not cool.
That should have come a minute earlier, JYP. A minute
For
earlier.
sure.
But yeah, I think we've got to make the distinction. I think that falls into our city pop playlist.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Interesting. Wow.
This is harder than we thought.
It is harder than we thought.
I'm glad you brought up City Pop.
Yeah.
Or we would be making mistakes
we'd
all
be-
over the place.
Because the thing is when I got this idea to start this and I started my playlist, the only songs on it were After Midnight and Signal by FX.
Oh.
Boom the radio,
Mm-hmm.
the signal, those were like the only things
Yeah.
on my list. Maybe it will be harder to find actual disco songs than I thought.
Maybe.
But it's okay. Then we'll have a really sick city pop playlist.
We'll have a
and
really
we'll
good
be
city pop
dancing.
playlist.
We're gonna be dancing.
We'll still
no
be
matter what.
dancing.
All right. Here's another song. I think I know this song, but we'll see when it starts. This listener submitted 80s Twilight, and they wrote "Bitchin' Flute." Love that. Bitchin' is a very 70s slang word.
It sure
Good
is.
choice. In particular, when it's layered behind Hongjoong's rap. Disco references Daz Brick and Van McCoy, The Hustle.
Great.
All right.
The flute is a very important part of the hustle, so this
Okay,
is
so it's
something
just
we're
a
just
song.
listening to.
Okay. Simple piano intro. Oh.
Nothing about this is screaming disco to me right
tropical
now. It's
house
tropical
right now.
house. Yeah.
Oh, but the flute is fun.
It is fun. Someone I follow on. Oh, here we go. But you know, I would honestly argue that the flute is even 80s in its echoiness, and its kind of like
Yeah.
synthy wah-wah-ness. I'm not good at describing music. Waka,
I
waka,
need to
waka.
know. Waka waka, you know.
The only thing I know about ATs is that at one point Songpa wore a lot of capes in one comeback.
Oh.
And a lesbian I follow on Tumblr was really into that.
Yeah. I know what San looks like. That's about all I got.
I don't think I know what any of them look like. Oh, they have their own You Know. And their own Wooyoung.
I know.
Tisk tisk.
I do like this flute lick a lot.
Yeah. I love a song that has like a weird instrument that really sticks out.
Yeah.
It's like the clarinet in Sukhumvit Swimming.
Right.
That's a bitchin' clarinet
There's a
line.
This song kind of sounds like Super Junior, The Whistle.
I can't think of that song while this one is playing. Oh, We Vampire. Oh, Twilight.
I never want to assume things called Twilight.
I
are
didn't
about
want to
Twilight,
either,
but
I guess this one is. My sister just did a Twilight rewatch, and she watched all four and like did a live Instagram like story reaction. She ended up firmly on Team Charlie, which is Bella's dad. I said she should have been on Team Michael Sheen, but he's an evil vampire.
yeah.
Anyway, Based on our criteria, I'm sorry to say this does not meet
No.
our disco requirements.
It's a
Tropical
good song, but it
house,
is a tropical house song.
Not disco.
No, sorry.
Next up, we have Yua from Oh My Girl with the song Diver. And this listener wrote, while there are many great possible picks, this one is kind of under the radar, so I thought to highlight it. This B-side off of Yua's debut mini Bon Voyage from 2020 has funky disco instrumentals with a catchy chorus. Despite its reputation, it doesn't overstay its welcome, even at nearly 4 minutes long.
Oh boy.
Many of my favorite songs have a little bit of sadness or darkness to them, and this one gives that impression, and the lyrics are pretty neat too. Give it a shot, and I hope you enjoy it.
Okay.
All right. I definitely don't know this song, but I remember the debut. So here we go. Let's see.
The Forest Child song.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh, that feels disco so far. Although,
This has like Michael Jackson-y vibes.
Michael Jackson used disco elements
Yeah,
in
he
his
did
music
in
for
his
sure.
early stuff.
Yeah.
Like Don't Stop Till You Give It Up is absolutely a disco song.
And that.
Yeah.
It has no overtly city pop vibes to it so far.
Sure. How that bass is going, and I like it.
This is fun.
Is it kind of? Maybe it's just the melody, but Gloria Estefan or something. Like there's
Little
something
rhythm is gonna
kinda,
get ya.
Dun, dun, dun,
Bam,
dun,
bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
Bam, 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 bam. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
and that like
I mean, you can definitely like salsa to some disco.
oh for sure.
Salsa might be the wrong dance. Cumbia, maybe? I don't know.
숨을 쉬기 힘들 걸 당연하지 시간도 잊은 채로 오렌지
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
this
chicken scratch right
absolutely
there.
has our waka wakas, and the bass is properly funky.
It's a little bit more stripped down.
Yes, I feel like I wish it had a.
Yes.
Like if it had a violin
It
going,
needs
then
like it needs 2 more lines to the melody, to the instrument, like 1 string melody and maybe like a horn harmony.
Sure.
And we would have the wall
the
of
perfect.
sound.
Yeah, but the vibes are absolutely correct.
I'm gonna have to remember this one. This one and Fanfare. Saying it out loud so I remember it later.
Oh,
You know what? This feels like Kylie Minogue disco. Like new disco.
newer, yeah, for sure.
No, the NU
oh,
disco.
new disco, yes.
Disco Part 2. Disco Redo.
The resurgence.
Electric Boogaloo? Disco
Yeah.
Part 2? This is funky.
Yeah, I like it.
Funky and fresh.
Yeah, if this had been on the retro, or no, what's the Dua Lipa album called?
Future nostalgia.
Yeah, that would fit.
It would. I was listening to that on the way over. Gotta keep the theme.
Of course.
I mean, when disco is all you've been reading about or hearing
Right.
for the past like 3 days.
I'll be ready for it
Ooh,
Wow! And it ended on a nice funky waka.
fun. Love it.
Cool. All right. Yua Diver could go on the list. On the proper
She made it.
disco
She
list.
made it onto the disco list. No city pop here.
All right. Next, we have Wonder Girls, Be My Baby.
Ooh.
And the Wonder Girls, We're Back. Okay, my limited understanding of music is failing me a bit here. I genuinely can't tell if this song has disco influence or if I just associate disco K-pop with the Wonder Girls so much that I can't help but think all of their songs have that sound. This is my favorite Wonder Girls song, so that's why I went for it, but please feel free not to include it if I'm wrong. Nope, that's not what
Nope.
we're doing today. Like I said,
You'll find out if you're wrong live on the air.
like I said, and at the risk of sounding entirely too dramatic,
Not possible here.
K-pop's disco sound and the Wonder Girls, and by extension Sunmi, would not exist to the capacity they do today without each other. Would not say no to another Wonder Girls reunion and their queen of disco sound. All right.
Amazing. Well, Wonder Girls are known for playing with a lot of different genres, so it's not out of the question that they would have done a disco-inspired track. I can't think of how this song goes off the top of my head. The only thing I specifically remember, I think, is in the Wonder Girls movie where the choreography they go baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I definitely remember this being more like
It's a very Motown.
Motown.
song,
Yeah.
For sure.
But disco did sort of come from
Right.
Motown in many ways.
I was
so-
going to say that earlier, but I wasn't sure to credit it. But as far as I know, the term wall of sound was coined by Phil Spector, murderer Phil Spector, who was one of the biggest producers at Motown.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And Motown were some of the earlier producers of disco. Like the example I talked about earlier, My Love Is Lost, I think is the song.
yeah, you were saying that was
that
a
one is
Motown song.
a
yeah.
Motown track that led to disco. So let's see.
Well, even if it doesn't fit, I'm happy to watch some Wonder Girls.
Oh,
So
love
don't
Wonder
apologize, listener who submitted this. They're back, baby.
So this definitely has the modern sort of EDM elements of 2011 K-pop, but you can definitely hear the doo-wop Motown influence of it.
Yeah, it's I didn't remember the song being this electronic-y because they wear these little mini dresses and do this little girl groupy choreography that
Yeah.
I didn't remember the song itself sounding so electronic in its
I almost wonder
composition.
if the chorus drops out some of those electric elements, because I also don't remember it being so produced in that way. So computerized, I guess. I don't know how to describe that. Because it's not technically techno,
Right.
but it's electronic.
Yeah, this song is very hard. I feel like this song is kind of hard to describe.
It is hard to describe. Because it's obviously drawing from retro genres, but it doesn't overtly mimic any of them.
No, it's not straight up doing any kind of genre because it almost is techno in the beat. Just there's a little.
But if
fake
you
mta-mta.
changed the instruments and played basically an acoustic version,
If they did this on If Andromeda had existed
Yes.
in the day and they
if
did
you
this
had
with the real band.
the real band. But that Please Be My Baby almost feels like the Temptations. I
Yeah.
can't think of a female version of that. But you know what I
The
mean.
Ronettes.
Thank you.
There's one. But this extremely
Yeah, that's so techno.
second gen sound, this whoop 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 whoop.
Yeah, those sounds that are just sounds.
Whoop whoop whoop.
And I think that's why this is hard, because none of the instruments
There's
in
no
this
instruments
are real
in it.
instruments.
It's just
Yeah.
sounds. I do love this key change though.
Oh, Wonder Girls.
They're so cute.
We need to do a deep dive on the Wonder Girls.
It's on the list. It's on the list.
I know. I just
list
think
is
it every
so
time I
long.
think
I
of the
know.
Wonder Girls.
For Boo, right? We gotta do it for Boo.
They are his favorite.
Yay!
I don't know if that makes the playlist.
I don't think it
it's too
can.
much of an anomaly. It doesn't have any of the things we said on our
No.
checklist. So I feel like if the other ones that we said no to are gonna stand, then we can't say yes
No,
to
of
this
course
one.
not. But
Sorry to the Wonder Girls, but we love you.
we love you anyway.
Okay, last but not least, we have a group that came up a lot when if you do a cursory Google search of just like K-pop disco, this group will come up. And that is Tiara with Roly Poly. And this person wrote, I'm late, so this might not make it. You did. But she's a K-pop disco classic. Did this group of girls that like each other? No. But the vibes, immaculate.
Yeah,
So
I
here we
would say
go.
the vibes are immaculate. All right, so last one on the list here is Tiara, Roly Poly.
And we do already have a disco concept.
And this is
We're literally at a disco
the
with
music
disco
video
balls.
that takes place in the disco. And there's a
Is
zombie
this the one where there's
version.
zombies? Yeah. I wonder if we're gonna run into the same problem though of Be My Baby in that none of these are instruments. But it's definitely a disco concept.
Yeah, no, I think this is one that absolutely counts for that overt disco concept that we were talking about earlier because they are doing a line dance, which was a big part of disco,
Right.
that there were dances that everyone learned. And it like takes place in a disco. But Tiara made modern like dance, like electronic dance music. And that's what this is.
Yes. So kind of in the way that I was describing G-Friend earlier as Mago having that
Yeah.
overt disco concept, but the entire song does not have disco elements to it. Like without the concept of Mago, would it count fully as a disco song? Probably not.
Yeah, I think if you would just put this on without the visual element, you wouldn't
Yeah.
perk up that way. You do want to dance to it. It is
Sure.
it's dance music. But are dance music and disco music the same? No. That's what we're learning today.
And that little is the Bee Gees.
Yes,
Staying
and they're
Alive.
doing like all the Saturday Night Fever moves and stuff.
And they have their high-waisted bell bottoms.
No, like the dance and the aesthetics are great.
Disco concept? Check.
Check,
Disco
absolutely.
music? No, check.
But this is, I mean, it's fun.
I want to try to learn it while we're watching.
Ooh.
Shannon just danced her headphones off.
Headphones right now.
That's.
I love
I'd have
that.
to learn that. Hand wavies. Ooh,
Ooh,
that
another
this is disco-y.
doing a Soul Train line.
And that specific.
Yes, these horns are perfect. Or I mean the strings. I said horns.
Oh.
Yeah, they've got all the moves. I love it. Yeah, my mom used to teach me all the, like, I used to know the hustle when I was a kid. I, like, have mostly forgotten it. But, like, my mom, like, that was her music. So, like, I learned all the disco moves because, like, that was what she knew to be cool when she was a youth.
I took dance my freshman year in high school instead of PE, and we learned how to do the hustle and the electric slide
Nice.
and other stuff too. But those were like the first few things.
Yeah.
All right, Tiara Roly Poly.
Disco Concept.
Disco Concept
But
for
sorry,
sure.
not for the playlist.
Yeah, not for the playlist, auditory only. But we could do a separate visual playlist.
Sure.
There's so many options
So
when it
many
comes to
options.
this because disco, thank God, is here to stay.
Yeah, it is.
I love it.
So thank you to all of our seasoned fan tier patrons who submitted something. Apologies if we tore your opinions to shreds. We didn't mean to do that. We really were just trying to find the disco songs. And a lot of you said, I don't think this is disco.
And some of you were
you're
right.
sweet.
But that's okay.
But that's okay because now I think like now we've gone through this exercise and we've given us good parameters, and I think it will be easier to build the playlist now because now we all will have a much clearer understanding of what we're looking for.
Yes. Even we have made some mistakes.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pulling up We Ride right now just so
to
that we
test it.
can
Let's
listen
find
to it.
out.
I must know. I must. Chicken scratch guitar. The music video is very city pop.
Yes,
because
got
it's
the
very
vaporware
80s.
80s like I think this is a case of where our instrumentation is exactly the disco you
Yeah.
asked for, but again, I think it's the chords, it's the city pop chords.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like there's like we were there's these Michael McDonald-y like
And I think
chords.
that echoey doot-doot-doot-doot-doot in the background has the city pop elements. There's little like that.
yeah.
But I think it otherwise fits our checklist.
Yes, because
and
there's
no
real
overpowering
drums, there's our
synths.
wicka waka, we've got our bass, like it's got all and
Real
our
bass, real
strings.
guitar, real drums.
Love it.
Okay, I say it counts.
I think it counts. It skirts a line though, because I do think there is this like, but I think that's the similar thing like with all like Asian music, because like my husband was explaining to me that like Chinese instruments have notes on them that like are not on a piano.
Yeah.
There's like more notes.
Right.
So like I think the chords that are chosen or the melodic just like general style of Asian music is different from Western music. So I feel like whatever the city pop chords were or like that's more likely to appear in the K-pop because like that's
Sure.
the vibes.
Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting.
Very, very interesting. I think that's a We Ride is an interesting example of being right on that line of especially with the concept itself of the music video and the like aesthetics of it.
Yeah.
Because that's fully 80s.
Yeah.
But the sound of it does have the beat. It's got the guitar. It's got the bass that we need. So
Yeah. Wow.
So I do not take it off of my example list.
And you
And it
shouldn't.
will be on the playlist.
All right. Well, again, thank you to everybody who submitted something, and thanks to everybody who was watching on the Patreon. And we'll be right back with our random game. All right, we're back. And the random number generator said, "You had a lot of fun with me last week, and you poked fun at me, so I'll make you cry." And it chose GOT7, which we reacted really strongly to, and we're like not excited to have done.
The
like,
wound
it
is too
hurt.
fresh,
It's too
random number
fresh.
generator. The wound is too fresh. But we will not be giving you a lot of information about GOT7 today because they are deserving of a deep dive eventually. So we will simply say that they debuted in
on January 1st, 2014.
they announced
Announced
the
them.
debut.
When did they debut?
And that was JYP's first boy group since 2PM.
Here we go. January 20, 2014.
Beautiful. With the first EP called Got It. And the title track of that was what?
A?
Oh, probably.
Maybe?
That sounds right.
Let's check the discography page. Oh no, girls. And then
Girls that love me.
And then Stop It.
Yeah.
My car, A is my song
First
that when I
song.
plug my phone into my
Yeah.
car, it's dun, Stop working. Stop fronting. That's what happens as soon as I turn my car on every single day. But GOT7 released a bunch of albums and did great things and were great, and they recently disbanded.
When their
very
contracts expired,
recently.
they decided not to renew them, and they all went their separate ways. And they're all doing solo stuff now.
Which is fine, and they're allowed to, and I'm happy for them. I saw today that Mark and BB have a song on the Shang-Chi soundtrack.
Ooh,
the Marvel movie.
Interesting. Keep an eye out for that, I guess.
Keep an eye out, and like Jackson's being a CEO, and
Sure, I mean, Jackson's
They're
off building
all-
his own Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Wang Cinematic Universe, and then JB's off being a thought in the woods. Yugyam's doing his own thing too. I saw him put out something that was like with his new company, and it was this like crazy dance collaboration with other artists that are at his company. Bam Bam put out his debut Ribbon. There's been a lot of really cute JYP alum interactions between him and Sunmi.
yeah, they're cute.
They're cute friends. But yeah, GOT7 as a group is kaputs for now.
Yeah.
Unless they
Pull a 2 p.m. and
Yeah.
come back somehow.
and do stuff
But anyway,
together anyway.
they're great, and their deep dive is coming.
But we
So-
will be watching their most watched music video, which is my favorite music video of theirs, Just Right.
It has 383 million views.
And it is from 2015.
And
I feel
It's
like
about-
we've talked about this music video so many
Yeah.
times because it's just such a like perfect classic music video. It's just such a good K-pop music video. This for a while was the song that I would like show people.
yeah, for sure. It's got that. It deserves that type of treatment. All right, so let's watch Just Right. Press play with me. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay.
So we're gonna see a sad
sad.
girl sitting sadly in the mirror.
Using her Clarisonic and trying not to cry.
Doesn't
bless
like her skin.
Oh, the drawer is rumbling.
Oh no, what could it be?
It's
Jackson!
Oh, he's so cute.
Oh, he's so cute. I wanted Tiny Jackson on my makeup poof
Mark.
and
in the
Mark on my
clock.
clock. So all the lyrics are just mirror scale, tell her she doesn't have to change anything. Just a feel-good song. Telling you that you're just right. Just right. Ah, the dance is so cute. I love this dance.
That part with
Yeah, the little hoppies. Oh, GOT7. Oh, 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 oh. Ooh, ooh.
This part too is so cute. Oh, and Mark's Puff Puff Pass sweatshirt.
And Bam Bam's neck tattoo.
The gloves. I always thought these gloves were so weird.
I think he's supposed to be dressed like a goalie.
Oh, interesting.
But he's wearing them there too,
too.
actually,
I
so I
think
take
it
it
was
back.
a
There's no
choice.
excuse. I was trying to help you out, Bam Bam.
No, I think the stylist was like, I think this comeback Bam Bam should wear gloves.
Oh, you're so cute.
They're in a Barbie car and they're being adorable. Oh, the fan. Oh.
I'm pretty sure at the
Jae-young.
beginning of this, when they showed everybody's face, Jin Young was listed as junior.
Oh, right, because he was still
Yeah.
junior, because he has the same name as JYP. And we talked about it on our, like, subunits or whatever episode, but JB and Jin Young debuted first as JJ Project before
Yes.
there was GOT7.
I love this part.
Where he does that dance.
I saw someone make it into a meme that was like that feeling when you eat cake and it's just so good. I think of it every time.
Oh, now the cute girl is doing the dance too. And she's happier.
Because she's just right.
No, don't jump
no
on
shoes
the
on the bed.
It's too
But look at all these jumping boys. So happy. Oh, 2015 was a simpler time.
It really, really, really was. I can't even express to you how much simpler it was. Oh, they're so cute! I can't stand it. Oh, yay.
GOT7.
GOT7. Gone but not forgotten. GOT7.
I have not fully mourned you, my loves.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Not at all!
All right. Well, it's weekly recommendation time. Would you like to go first?
Sure, I have 2 weekly recommendations. The first is for non-K-pop but recent disco, modern disco music.
Hit us.
Our dear queen, Miss Kylie Minogue, the perhaps founder of New Disco. She put out an album in 2020 called Disco, and it's fucking great. Like, it's awesome. It's so good. Picking just one song off of it is impossible, but I will pick one, and it is called Hey Lonely. It's a B-side off of it. The lead title is just called Disco. And there's a deluxe version on Spotify. It's like a big 16-track album, and it's fun all the way through. So if you are in the mood for disco and you want a little bit of like a more modern take on it, it's perfect revitalized disco. It's exactly what you need for this day and age. So Kylie Minogue, Disco.
Great.
Easy to remember because it's called the genre. But my K-pop related recommendation is for the new Brave Girls song. And this is why I was so insistent upon checking that We Ride was in fact disco. Because their newest song is called After We Ride. That's the English title. The Korean title is something that I've seen translated as drinking habits, and it's the like main word of the chorus. But the English title is After We Ride, and this takes place supposedly right after We Ride.
Okay.
Because We Ride is about like an uncomfortable like car ride where basically the couple like breaks up, and After We Ride is about basically knowing that this person is wrong for you, but every time you drink, you're drawn back to that person. And what I really like about it is that After We Ride has like a very, very overt 80s vibe to it, and the song itself feels very solidly city pop in the sense that like I cannot say it is disco. It is not disco at all. It is way 80s, like fully synths, like electronic instrumentation behind it. But I felt like it's just such a great follow-up to the disco track of We Ride that it's like a perfect partnership. I love it. What a great little package. Brave Girls, After We Ride.
Yay, that's good. My recommendation is really just a way for me to talk about exciting news on the podcast, which is that my boy Crush, he's not alone anymore. Oh my God, my boy Crush. So if you haven't heard the news, it's been confirmed that my boy Crush and Joy from Red Velvet are
What a
in
pull,
love now.
Wow. Wow, Crush.
Wow. Crush.
Wow.
I'm so happy for both of them.
I'm so happy for both of them. I'm happy for their dogs who now have new dog siblings and new dog parents. I am happy that both of their companies were like, yes, they seem to really like each other. Crush's note
Oh my
had
God. his
zero
note.
apologies.
No apologies. Not even one.
Zero apologies and the most beautiful lines about like getting to know each other slowly and seriously.
And that this
Every
person has
day
made him
makes
happier and his
I
heart is
smile more
healthier.
every day because of this person, and like, oh, my heart.
Oh, it makes me.
My
it's-
heart, it flutters.
My heart is so
It
fluttery.
flutters.
So I'm very happy for them. These two people who, as a funny tweet I saw, always have to type in Korean singer after their name when they Google
saw that
themselves.
too.
Like they both of their names are so ungoogleable. But anyway, all that to say, I was just going to recommend, and I know it was on my year-end list, so I'm just being a broken record, but Crush and Joy met on doing a collaboration for his like quarantine album last year, and they did a song called Mayday, and they filmed the music video at his house with his dogs, and she's like the princess that appears out of his make pretend castle when he's just like being bored in the house and in the house bored, and I don't know, it's just like really
and
sweet.
his fairy tale came true.
He got her, you guys.
Amazing.
It's so adorable.
And now he has someone to visit him in the military.
Yeah.
Good for you, Crush. Good for you, Joy.
I'm just happy for everybody. So that's my lazy recommendation, but just to say, like, my boy. I'm so happy.
Cheers to them.
Cheers to them.
Clink.
All right. Well, that is it for this week. If you would like to get in contact with us, we can be found at AMA K-Pop Pod on all of the places. Ask Me About K-Pop, the podcast on YouTube, Spotify. We have a Linktree/AMA K-Pop Pod that links to all our things like our Discord, where you can talk to other listeners, and our Patreon, patreon.com/AMA K-Pop Pod. If you want to join Patreon to see the video of today's episode, you can see our faces and us dancing along to all the songs. Or if you join the highest tier, you can submit songs like people did this week for the next time we do a special Patreon episode.
And I already have several genres in mind
Ready,
of
yeah.
things I want to know.
No, this was an interesting setup for something, so I feel like we could explore this again. If you would like to give us a call, 181-AMA K-Pop 5 for voicemails. We can also receive letters and packages and things to P.O. Box 26096.
Good job.
Los Angeles, California, 90026. I finally
Good
memorized
job, good
it.
job.
Finally memorized it. And yeah, we have like all our episodes planned out for the next like 2 months, and there's like exciting
Yeah.
things happening and special guests and cool stuff. So thank you as always for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Jonghyun, you're our inspiration. And 17, 351, 351. Go.
239.
Oh
No! Wow! Oh, heartbreak.
that's a big wham.
Heartbreak
That's a
abounds.
big wham.
Oh my gosh, I have actual tears in my eyes. Oh no.
Wow.
All right.